Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Wednesday, so happy Wednesday to you. And I gotta say it, I apologize already, but it's Wednesday my dudes. We'll begin with today's video with this little girl. Now, if we look at the video you can see she doesn't have a leg anymore. She's limping. Look at that poor little girl. She's learning to walk again, but she's smiling. She is happy. She just learned to walk. Then she lost a leg due to Russian terror bombing, and now she has a new artificial leg, learning to walk again. Look at that struggle in her face, but still smiling. That is the power of the Ukrainian resilience, the power of the Ukrainian people. They are very strong and very brave, starting with this little girl right here. It just moved me, so I wanted to share it with you. But now, my friends, on the very opposite topic, we'll go to North Korea because Putin arrived in North Korea. We have footage here, of course. It's nothing marvelous. It is two pathetic dictators meeting each other, but I just want to look at this footage to see if we can find any weird stuff in here, and believe me, there will be. Look at this. Everybody's ready, and then we have the... Look at it. It's so weird. Walking alone in a red carpet, signifying of them being completely alone and paranoid. Nobody can be around. Rolling out the red carpet. And now we have Putin walking down the stairs. Now it's so weird to watch this. Putin was not interested in visiting North Korea before the full-scale invasion, but now he's completely dependent on the countries who are ready to export anything to him, like China and North Korea. China gives massive amounts of, it's military aid, but it's not lethal aid. It's like uniforms, food, support equipment. But North Korea directly gives military aid, giving Putin the ability to destroy even more lives in Ukraine, much like the little girl we watched just 2 minutes ago. Two pathetic dictators meeting. Just to give you a little hint of why Putin is also so, how do you say it? In Estonia we have talalakku, which means licking the soles of the feet of somebody, trying to please somebody. Why he's trying to please North Korea's Kim Jong-un so much is because he really admires what Kim Jong-un has done to his people and the Kim dynasty. Look at these guys. They are crying because the last dictator of North Korea died. And they're super sad, as you can see. Obviously, this is all real. Obviously, it's not fake. Look at it. Oh, it's dead. So Putin wants to create zombies like that. That is his goal, because these zombies, they can be ordered to be a cannon fodder like that. Of course, Russians are also ready, but Putin has to pay for the soldiers to go and die for him. Kim Jong-un doesn't have to pay. It is enough not to feed them. It is enough to starve 10 million people of North Korea, and they're ready to go and fight for an apple. So Putin wants to create zombies like that. That's why he really admires North Korea and Kim Jong-un. This is his goal. And if he's continuing like that, it's gonna be like that. Because Putin is moving Russia deeper and deeper into a pariah state, an isolated state from the world economy in every sense, and to the depressive hole which was the Soviet Union in the 60s, 70s, when the stagnation began. That's what Putin is doing. We are on the topic of Putin, so I'll carry on with it, because another video was released when he was in the crowds. This is presidential motorcade of Russia. They're arriving somewhere, and later we can see Putin coming out, greeting the crowds. I want to point out some things. This is not him. It is a body double again, because we all know Putin does not like people close to him. He does not trust anybody. And suddenly we get this guy greeting everybody, super high energy, smiling, speaking fast. That's not Putin. That's a body double. Big head, super high energy, probably drugged up. Also eyes a little bit different, nose very much different if you look at it from the side. This is not Putin's nose. Small details, but yeah, another one of his high energy body doubles have been rolled out. And now finally, to conclude the Putin shenanigans, because I know you guys like it, he's becoming another clown. Putin appointed his niece as deputy defense minister. In addition, Putin dismissed all Shoigu's deputies by decree: Pavel Popov, Tatiana Shevtsova, Nikolai Bankov, and Ruslan Tsalikov. When dictators like Putin can no longer trust anyone, they choose relatives for their inner circle. Now, she does not have any credibility to run the Ministry of Defense, but so does not the Ministry of Defense, the Belousov, who is an economist running the Ministry of Defense for Russia, like an economist, because budget cuts are in for Russia and they don't have enough money to keep the war going, so Belousov comes with huge scissors to cut the costs. But now, one of Belousov's deputies is Putin's niece. That is nepotism, and that is, every late-stage dictatorship has these family members running different departments of the country. Now, my friends, another drone attack against the Russian oil depot. This is already very repetitive, but every time I love reporting this because this hurts Russian bank, Russian money and economical situation the worst. Oil and gas exports is where they make their buck. You take that away, you take everything away, because Russia is nothing more than a big gas station. Drone attack on the Russian oil depot in the Azov Rostov region of Russia is reported. 170 kilometers from the front line, as you can see, on the Russian territory, on the coast of the Sea of Azov oil depot. Now, if we watch this satellite imagery, we can actually see 6 beautiful targets here, oil storing facilities, possibly filled with the kaboom material, ready to go, bada bing, bada boom, and it did. 2 of them were hit, and by the way, I saw a report today that this is still burning. Over 35 hours later, it is still burning. How can something burn for 35 hours? Well, this can, since it's mostly oil, crude oil, or I don't even think it is refined oil like gasoline or diesel, because these burn faster. Crude oil burns very slow and needs more heat. And I'm guessing this is crude oil. It just keeps burning. They cannot put it out. So yeah, a grill fest going on in Russia right now. My friends, it is starting. Something that people have been calling for a long time, that China will buy Russia. Yeah, China might invade Russia, but that's not how China does things. They are giving out predatory loans all across Africa to countries that cannot pay them back. And China is just like, okay, you cannot pay our money back. Maybe if you give us this port or this military base, we'll be fine. Then we don't want the money. That's how they do things. Now, they're using the same tactics on Russia. Most of Russia's car industry, 90% of it, is now dominated and owned by Chinese companies. Same will go to Russian airplane industry. And now, Russia offers to sell a piece of its Far East land to China. This land surrounding the Tumangan River will be sold to China, so China can widen the river for expanded commerce. And Putin will likely invest that money in destroying Ukraine. As you can see, this is Russia and this is North Korea, and there is a river right here, and China is in this certain area landlocked from the Sea of Japan. They really want to get onto the Sea of Japan because it's the Sea of Japan. It's a very important sea for commerce and for military. Now, right now, China, if they want to get any vessels there, they have to ask permission from Russia and from North Korea, which, of course, both countries will grant, but it takes time and it's just tedious. For them, if they own this river and their land surrounding it, and if China widens this river, they can make more money by exporting stuff to Asian countries, to European countries from this Chinese area. Also, they can export their military power projection through military ships all across the Sea of Japan with a much shorter deployment time because they can come straight from this river. So China has every interest and strategical importance to buying this area. And of course, Russia selling this is basically selling away their power in the area over China. Russia has leverage over China thanks to this river that they control, but this leverage will be sold away. This will be a catastrophic move from a military perspective, but Putin has nothing left to trade with China to keep the peace, and China's support for Putin's murderers and illegal land grab in Ukraine. Chinese ships are now unable to access the area since they need permission from Russian Federation and DPRK, North Korea, to pass the 15-kilometer section. At the same time, the Friendship Bridge, built between North Korea and Russia, is an additional obstacle on the passage of large Chinese ships. So the Friendship Bridge is a bridge built between China and North Korea over this very same river, and it leads to nowhere. It's super expensive, over $250 million this bridge cost, and they built it, and as you can see from these different satellite imagery, from China it comes from an urbanized area where you're going to traverse to North Korea over this bridge, but in North Korea it just lands to nowhere in the middle of a field because North Korea never completed any infrastructure on land to connect to this bridge. So it's $250,000 custom bridge that leads to nowhere in North Korea. It's damn stupid. From an economic point of view, the three eastern provinces will have the shortest sea road to Japan, the eastern ports of North Korea, and even the United States and other countries. Sailing time and transportation costs will be significantly reduced. More importantly, China will have the opportunity to deploy naval forces in the Sea of Japan. This is incredibly important. It's a huge trade, and Russia would definitely not do this. Putin does not want to give any territory. He is almost life-threateningly allergic to giving away territories. He just measures any kind of success as land grabs. Even if you lose tens of billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of men by taking unimportant land, for him, taking land is the most important. Saying this signals to us that he doesn't have any leverage over China anymore. So if he wants Chinese continuous help on this war against Ukraine, he needs to give them something more than cheap oil and gas, and he has resorted to selling very important territory. I gotta remind you, they sold Alaska to the United States. How did that turn out? So this signals to us how screwed Putin is, and he's out of cards. Now, my friends, in the last videos we have talked about the economy a lot, how Ruble is burning, and people go to the comment section and say, oh, I just googled Ruble and USD course. It's the same, it's not burning at all. What are you talking about? I said many times, that course that you will find on Google, that Ruble trading to United States dollar, oh, Ruble is strengthening, has nothing to do with reality, no connection. Since officially no country and no stock market is now trading ruble against the United States dollar or euro, that course is fictional. It is just nothing more than pure air. The real course is what is happening in Russian banks in Russia. That is the true and real course of the value of the ruble, and they're buying the dollar for 50 to 60 rubles from Russian people. They're selling the dollar for up to 200 rubles, 150, 160, maybe 200, depending on the bank. Now that is the real trade happening between Russian banks and Russian people, which sets the real course, the real difference between ruble and dollar. And many people going to Google that and calling out that this is fake news, this is clickbait. No. If you have lived through the 90s in Russia, then you know there's no connection between this real value of the ruble you find in Google and what the banks really sell it to you. In the 90s, everything was done in dollar in Russia that was worth something. Every bigger money, more important deals were done in dollar. Ruble existed. It was weak, it existed, people bought with it, but if you had to buy something big and more important, you converted to dollar. And the price that was official on the stock markets was not the real price. The price that people were willing to pay and sell for the dollar, that was the real price. And that in Russia right now is close to 150, sometimes 200 rubles per dollar. That's the real price of dollar in Russia. But now coming back to the BRICS countries and their economies, I reported that some of the BRICS countries actually want to create their own currency based on solid gold. The idea is bogus, it is stupid, and it just doesn't work. I'm not going to even go into it because there is not enough gold in the world to back any currency nowadays. There's just too much money and too little gold. That's the robust truth of it. India decided to purchase American infantry fighting vehicles instead of Russian ones. They plan to replace more than 2,000 Russian-designed BMP-2s infantry fighting vehicles with the latest generation of American Stryker armored personnel carriers. Now this news is much more than meets the eye because BRICS, India being one of the main countries in BRICS, the global south or the alternative to NATO, European Union and the Western powers and the rules-based world order, India is supposed to be backing Russia and China, but they're not buying from Russia and China, they're buying from America. And if you're buying from America, you're strengthening the dollar and you're strengthening the American military, United States military, when you're buying the Stryker infantry fighting vehicles, which India is doing. So it sends a signal to all of the world and even the global south that Russian infantry fighting vehicles are crap, because we can see they are in Ukraine, and they're wanting to look for American ones. Now India has projected to put about 100 billion United States dollars to defense in the next decade, for the next 10 years. An insane amount of money. Mostly they were before buying from Russia and China. Now seeing how Russian military is doing in Ukraine, it's very bad publicity. They want to go to the United States and Europe, maybe even South Korea, to buy weapons. And if that 100 billion is diverted from Russia to these other countries, that is A, very bad for Russian economy, and B, it strengthens euro, strengthens dollar, and strengthens the NATO military industrial complex from a BRICS country. So for anybody seeking to find the alternative to a dollar by looking for the BRICS countries, then even these countries want to buy military equipment from the United States. The dollar is not going anywhere, my friends. Look at that photo. We have talked in the previous video, some little snippets of videos, it just looks cool, of Ukrainians using their FPV drones now to take out Russian loitering munitions. This is a Lancet, but also reconnaissance drones like Orlan and Zala. Now, how did this come to be? This was a FPV drone, Ukrainian FPV drone that was sent to intercept Zala or Orlan drone, whichever it was, a Russian recon drone. But then it came across a Russian Lancet, which is a very deadly, unfortunately very effective Russian weapon. Let's look at the footage. It looks really awesome. So it sees the Lancet and it goes to fly, it goes to follow it, and boom, look at this. Looks like Star Wars. You know the fighters in Star Wars that make the real weird noise and have the X-wing body shape? That's exactly what it looks like. Now a Ukrainian FPV drone taking down a Russian FPV, that is the future. The future is now. Of course there is a massive price gap here because the Lancet is a very expensive drone. This Ukrainian FPV is probably like $1,000, $2,000 at max. This Lancet is over 100. Not because it's really worth over 100, but because in Russia the procurement system always works in a way that the real price is multiplied by 5 or 6 times, because the procurement officers in any level of the procurement, from up to bottom, everybody needs to take their cut, 10%. So once the Lancet is made, its price is actually 5 times larger than it should be. That's why it's over $100,000 per piece. So taking it out with a Ukrainian FPV, beautiful. But talking about drones, this is a road to a Russian frontline position. As you can see, it looks weird. What is it? Well, it's anti-drone netting put on the road to protect against Ukrainian FPV drones and even dropped submunitions from drones. But it looks so janky. Also, you cannot put this web up for kilometers. Here you can see it's done only 100 meters perhaps. I would call this not effective and very time consuming for a very little result. All the Ukrainian FPV has to do is wait until the vehicle is out of this 100 meter strip and then strike it anyway. So, a creative solution, but not a very effective one. Now, my friends, we'll jump to Cuba, because during the weekend, Russian newest, baddest, biggest and most expensive nuclear submarine arrived in Cuba. This is the mighty Kazan nuclear submarine, Russia's latest and greatest weapon visiting Cuba. Its technology is so ahead that it can detach the soundproofing panels that insulate the hull while navigating, deafening the sonar operators of Western submarines. Brilliant. Let's look at it. What do they really mean? That's the Kazan nuclear submarine in Cuba, the crew making a photo. And look at this. They're missing pieces. Look at this. This is the rubber soundproofing material on top of the submarine. Without it, your submarine is extremely loud and can be detected. And in submarine warfare, detection is everything. Now, you can destroy a modern submarine with World War II torpedoes if you can hear it. So it's not about the weaponry, it's more about how quiet can you be. And when you're lacking this rubber, it's a few months old, only this submarine, already lacking these rubber particles. So it's pretty loud underwater. Of course, my friends, this is not the whole truth actually, because this is a United States submarine. These rubber particles sometimes come off, especially when you cross huge oceans, Atlantic. It happens with every submarine nowadays, and they need to be fixed all the time. After every trip of 1 to 2 months, they need to be refitted, some of the rubber particles. But the thing is, this is the newest Russian submarine, and it's going on a propaganda mission in Cuba. I mean, maintain a little bit. I thought Russia didn't maintain their BMP-1s or BTR-70s, but they don't even maintain their newest, baddest, most expensive nuclear submarine. This is bad publicity, my friends. I wouldn't operate it like that. But now, my friends, I want to give you a little fun quote from the Polish president Andrzej Duda. He's saying what we think in the Baltics. He's saying what the Germans are afraid to say. He's saying what the Southern Europeans don't even know how to think. Polish are awesome. We should all be more like the Polish. Putin wants that Russian soldiers die in Ukraine en masse. You have to do everything that these expectations of Mr. Putin are met, so that Russia fails in Ukraine. That the Russians, due to killed soldiers, will eventually make the people rebel and say they will not fight this aggressive war. So, Putin wants Russian soldiers to die in Ukraine. We must oblige him. We must enable him. He wants them to die. Okay, Mr. Putin, let's step your way. We're gonna make it more effective. I love that he's not choosing his words. He's saying it how it is. Polish military spending, if I'm not mistaken, right now is 4.5% per year of the GDP, the highest in NATO GDP-wise. Estonia is second and United States is third. Estonia is like 3.6%, United States is 3 point something more. Of course, I'm not even talking about the hundreds of billions. United States Department of Defense budget is close to 1 trillion, 1,000 billions. And Estonia, not on the same scale. But coming back to Poland, the percentage is high, the wording is correct, the idea is, I can stand behind it. The European Commission has set up an audit commission to oversee 50 billion euros sent in loans to Ukraine. The audit commission is designed to help Kyiv monitor the use of the aid provided, as well as to prevent fraud, corruption and conflicts of interests. At least 6 meetings will be held annually to discuss the results of the audits and at least 6 visits to Kyiv. The commission itself will be based in Brussels. Why is this so important and big? Because one of the biggest Russian propaganda is to maximize news about Ukrainian corruption. Ukraine has an issue of corruption, definitely. And it's in every Russian interest to maximize these news. Now, European Union sent another 50 billion, and they will send actually, of euros as loans to Ukraine. And it's not just coughing money at the problem. There is an audit a regular audit of how they use the money. If there is any conflict of interest, signs of corruption, they will not get any more money. If there is moving away from the democratic process of running the country, of governing, they will not get any more money. So if you think this money is used wrongly, you believe Ukraine is so corrupt they cannot be helped, then unfortunately you have believed the Russian propaganda narratives. In the United States there are these audits for Ukraine, in European Union there are these audits for the money used in Ukraine, and if there's any signs of them being used incorrectly, there will be repercussions. Here, my friends, look at that footage. Another Russian prisoners of war. Where? On top of their turtle tank. No joke. This is the first turtle tank that the Ukrainians capture, and they captured it with the whole crew. They drove it to Ukrainian positions, and now it's a Ukrainian turtle tank, as you can see, a fighter with the Ukrainian flag on top of the tank. Of course, this tank has no real use for the Ukrainians in the state that it is now, because Ukrainians are not doing mass assaults. They don't need these turtle tanks. But it is in use, just you can look at it up close where you can hit it. How is it put together? Where is the best place to hit it with an FPV? It's just a nice way to learn how to destroy Russians more effectively. And now to conclude, I'll go back to BRICS countries. Well, Armenia is not part of the BRICS countries, but it is supposed to be part of the Russian-led CSTO, or Collective Security Treaty Organization, a copycat of NATO led by Russia. It is very pathetic, and Armenia recently announced that they will be leaving that security organization, trying to move away from Russian influence more into the European and Western markets. That's connected to almost everything they do. Armenia has signed a contract with France for the purchase of C-0 self-propelled artillery. This was announced by the French defense minister. According to him, this is a new important milestone. We continue to strengthen our defense relationship with Armenia. Now there's a second side to that story. I welcome very positively any news of countries moving away from Russian influence, but Armenia is a very tricky choice. The leadership of Armenian country is disillusioned about Russia, and they want to move away as fast as possible. It is a huge loss for Russia and their projection of power in the area, but it's not that simple. France is not doing its due diligence, selling lucrative military gear to Russian sanctions circumvention trading hub. Moscow has begun dropping hints of how much economic pain it can inflict on Armenians. And Armenia is really connected to Russian economy. So much so that it's right now almost impossible to destroy these connections and connect it to the West. Armenian officials offer assurances that all is fine on the economic front, but economists and business people are increasingly worried about possible consequences of the political tensions. About 40% of Armenia's export go to Russia, almost half, 50%, so close to 50. If Russia really brings out the weapons of economy against Armenia for leaving the CSTO, they can take away about 50% of Armenian monetary income, which is basically a death sentence to a country. And Yerevan's dependence on Russia for basic goods is overwhelming. Gazprom Armenia, the local subsidiary of the Russian state gas company, owns all of the country's gas distribution infrastructure. All of the gas infrastructure. Imports from Russia of grain and petroleum products also enjoy a near monopoly. Armenia's economy is heavily dependent on migrant laborers sending their wages back home from Russia. In 2022, money transfers from Russia accounted for $3.6 billion out of the total $5.1 billion entering the country. Over half of the entire money entering Armenia comes from Russia. So as much as the Armenian leadership is trying to move away from Russia, it is not about only a political decision. It is knowingly making the decisions that decouple from Russian economy and buy from the West and sell to the West. They have to make these decisions because Russia is not only a military power or a political will to move away from it. To move away from it is to fully disconnect your economy from the Russian economy. If that is not done, there is no way a country can move away from Russia. And now, my friends, it is Wednesday, my dude, so I gotta butcher some Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. It is second time in this week, and one time more I will make video on Friday, and then something big is happening. I'll tell you later about it. But now, butchering of the names, and the first name, I've said your name, I think for 3 years already I remember mentioning this. Jochen Miva, Scott P. Eng, Fukpo Din, Sentinel Sam, Real Character, some weird symbols of some language. I don't know which language is it. Can you know? Can you tell? Gary Bell, Matthias Carmen Maria Justus, what the hell? Theodor Meliker. You have a too long of a name for this channel, my friend. You better change it. Thank you for supporting the channel by becoming my monthly members of Buy Me a Coffee. Until my next video, my friends, which will be on Friday, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.